The crash of plates in the crowded café made everyone turn, except Marcus Palmer, who was too busy negotiating with his 5-year-old daughter over the merits of finishing her grilled cheese sandwich. As the rest of the customers resumed their conversations, he remained oblivious to the elegant woman who just walked in, the same woman whose multimillion-dollar company's meeting he had catered yesterday, and whose life was about to intersect with his in ways neither could imagine. "Emma, honey, 3 more bites and we can talk about the playground," Marcus said, his voice gentle but firm as he wiped a smudge of ketchup from his daughter's cheek. At 32, the lines around his eyes spoke of both laughter and struggle, his calloused hands telling the story of a man who worked tirelessly to make ends meet. "But Daddy, my tummy says it's full." Emma's brown eyes, so like his own, widened with the practiced innocence that often broke his resolve. "Your tummy also said it wanted ice cream 10 minutes ago," he countered with a smile, pushing back the sleeves of his weathered flannel shirt. "3 bites, then we'll go." From across the café, Amelia Blackwell observed the interaction. She found herself smiling, something she hadn't done genuinely in weeks. Meetings with shareholders, contract negotiations, and the constant pressure of running Blackwell Innovations had left little room for simple joys. But watching this father and his daughter, his patience, the genuine affection between them stirred something she'd forgotten existed. When the little girl finally took her last bite and pumped her fist in victory, Amelia couldn't help but chuckle. The man looked up, meeting her gaze for a moment, and recognition flashed across his face. "You're the caterer from yesterday," she said, approaching their table. "The food was exceptional." Marcus stood quickly, nearly knocking over his coffee. "Miss Blackwell, thank you. I'm Marcus Palmer." "This is my daughter, Emma." "Hello, Emma," Amelia said, crouching slightly. "That must have been a very good sandwich." Emma nodded seriously. "Daddy makes the best sandwiches in the whole universe, even better than astronauts eat." "I'm sure that's true," Amelia replied, finding herself charmed by the child's certainty. She turned to Marcus. "I actually wanted to ask if your company would be available for our annual corporate retreat next month." Marcus looked stunned. Blackwell Innovations' retreat was a prestigious gig that could single-handedly solve his financial struggles for months. "I'd be honored, but I should warn you, company is a generous term. It's just me and occasionally a couple of part-time helpers. Even better. I prefer working with passionate individuals rather than corporate entities." She reached into her handbag and handed him her card. "Call my office Monday to discuss details." As she walked away, Marcus stared at the embossed card, hardly believing his luck. Emma tugged at his sleeve. "Daddy, playground now, you promised." "Yes, princess, I did promise." He tucked the card carefully into his wallet, still stunned by the unexpected opportunity. What Marcus couldn't have known was that Amelia lingered by the café window, watching as he swung his daughter onto his shoulders and headed down the street, the little girl's laughter floating back to her on the autumn breeze. When Monday came, Marcus found himself in Amelia's sleek downtown office, trying not to appear intimidated by the floor-to-ceiling windows and modern art that probably cost more than his annual income. He dressed in his best shirt, the only one without a permanent food stain, and had even splurged on a haircut the day before. "Your proposal looks excellent," Amelia said, reviewing the menu options he'd hastily put together over the weekend. "But I'm concerned about the logistics. Our retreat is at Lakeside Resort, 2 hours upstate. We'll need service for 40 people over 3 days." Marcus calculated quickly. "I'd need to rent additional equipment, maybe bring on 3 temporary staff." He hesitated. "And there's Emma. She's usually with me after school, and it's during the school week." Amelia tilted her head, studying him. "Bring her." "Excuse me. The resort has excellent childcare facilities. She can stay there during your working hours. We'll cover the additional cost." Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "That's very generous, but I don't usually leave her with strangers." Amelia's expression softened, surprising herself as much as him. "I understand. Perhaps we can work around your schedule then. Core meal times with some self-service options." An hour later, they had a workable plan. As Marcus gathered his notes, Amelia found herself asking, "How long have you been on your own with Emma?" The question surprised him. Clients rarely showed interest in his personal life. Since she was 1, her mother decided parenthood wasn't for her. Amelia nodded, sensing there was more to that story but respecting his privacy. It can't be easy building a business while raising a child alone. Some days are harder than others, he admitted, but Emma's worth every minute of struggle. Their eyes met, and for a moment, something unspoken passed between them, mutual respect, perhaps, or recognition of shared determination despite their vastly different circumstances. "Well, Mr. Palmer," she said, extending her hand, "I look forward to seeing what you create for us next month." As Marcus left her office, Amelia found herself watching him longer than necessary, noting the confident set of his shoulders despite his worn jacket, the way he nodded respectfully to her secretary. He didn't carry himself like a man intimidated by wealth, but like someone who measured success by entirely different standards. The thought was strangely refreshing. The 3 weeks leading up to the retreat flew by in a blur for Marcus. Between his regular catering jobs, preparing for Blackwell's event, and keeping up with Emma's kindergarten activities, he barely had time to breathe. But when Emma brought home her first perfect spelling test, her face glowing with pride, he was reminded why he pushed himself so hard. "See, Daddy." She pointed to the gold star. "Miss Thompson said I'm the best speller in class. That's because you're brilliant," he told her, scooping her up for a hug. "How about we celebrate with pizza tonight?" Emma's eyes widened. "Can we get the cheesy crust?" "Absolutely, you've earned it." Later that evening, as they sat at their small kitchen table in their modest 2-bedroom apartment, Emma suddenly asked, "Is the pretty lady going to be at the big cooking job?" Marcus nearly choked on his pizza. "Miss Blackwell. Yes, she will be. Why do you ask?" Emma shrugged, nibbling at her crust. "You smile different when you talk about her, like how Mr. Rodriguez smiles about Miss Patel at school." Marcus felt heat rise to his face. Mr. Rodriguez and Miss Patel were notoriously sweet on each other. "Miss Blackwell is a client, Emma." "A very important one. She has pretty eyes," Emma declared with the certainty only a 5-year-old could muster. "Like the honey we put in tea when I'm sick." Marcus couldn't argue with that. Amelia Blackwell did have remarkable amber eyes, though he'd been trying not to think about them or her elegant hands, or the way her professional demeanor occasionally slipped to reveal genuine warmth. "Yes, she does," he agreed cautiously. "But we need to focus on doing a great job at this event, okay? It could mean a lot more work for us." "And then we can fix the car?" Emma asked hopefully. Their aging sedan had been making ominous noises lately. "That's the plan," he said, reaching over to ruffle her hair. "Now, how about we practice those spelling words before bed?" The morning they were set to leave for the retreat, disaster struck. Marcus's delivery van refused to start, making alarming grinding noises that the mechanic on the phone diagnosed as a transmission issue, one that would take at least 3 days and nearly $2,000 to fix. Marcus stood in the apartment parking lot, panic rising. He had all his equipment loaded, ingredients purchased, and no way to get them to the resort. Canceling wasn't an option. It would ruin his reputation and destroy any chance of future work with Blackwell Innovations. With trembling hands, he called Amelia's office, preparing to explain the situation and beg for help finding a solution. To his surprise, she answered personally. "Miss Blackwell, I'm so sorry to bother you, but what's happened?" Her voice was immediately concerned. After he explained, there was a brief silence. "Text me your address. I'll be there in 30 minutes. But you must be preparing to leave for 30 minutes, Mr. Palmer." True to her word, a sleek black SUV pulled into his apartment complex exactly half an hour later. Amelia stepped out wearing casual clothing, designer jeans, and a simple blouse, looking remarkably different from her usual corporate attire. "I've arranged for a rental van," she explained, holding out a set of keys. "It's being delivered here in about 10 minutes. I'll follow you to the resort to make sure everything goes smoothly." Marcus stared at her, dumbfounded. "You didn't have to do this personally." "It was the most efficient solution," she said, but something in her expression suggested there was more to it than efficiency. Emma chose that moment to burst out of the apartment, backpack bouncing. Daddy, I packed my dinosaur pajamas and oh, hello, pretty lady. Amelia's professional mask dissolved instantly as she crouched down. Hello, Emma, I hear you're coming with us to the lake. Uh-huh. Daddy says there's ducks and I can feed them if I'm careful. There are indeed ducks, Amelia confirmed, and a playground and a special children's program with crafts and games. Emma's eyes widened. Really? She turned to her father. Daddy, can I do the crafts? Marcus nodded, still processing Amelia's unexpected arrival. If Miss Blackwell says it's okay for you to join the children's program while I'm working, then yes. I've already arranged it, Amelia said. And please call me Amelia, I think we're past formalities now. The rental van arrived, and Marcus quickly transferred his equipment and supplies. As they prepared to depart, he found himself with a moment alone with Amelia while Emma was using the bathroom. I don't know how to thank you, he said quietly. You saved this job and honestly probably saved my business. Amelia studied him, a small smile playing at her lips. You would have found a solution. You strike me as someone who always does. Still, this was above and beyond, she shrugged. Perhaps I just wanted to ensure the success of my event, or perhaps, she hesitated, something unfamiliar flickering across her face. Perhaps I wanted to help someone who clearly works as hard as you do. Before he could respond, Emma returned and the moment passed. But as they caravanned to the resort, Marcus found himself frequently checking his rearview mirror, catching glimpses of Amelia driving behind them, occasionally speaking animatedly on what he assumed was a hands-free phone. The resort exceeded Marcus's expectations. Nestled beside a pristine lake and surrounded by autumn-painted forests, it featured rustic, luxurious cabins, a main lodge with conference facilities, and every amenity imaginable. Emma's eyes grew wider with each new discovery as they checked in. Daddy, they have a pool inside the building. She whispered loudly as they passed the indoor recreation center. That's called an indoor pool, sweetheart, he explained, juggling their overnight bag and his folder of schedules and menus. Impressive, isn't it? Amelia appeared beside them, having completed her own check-in. Emma, would you like to see the children's center while your father gets oriented with the kitchen facilities? Emma looked to Marcus for permission, which he granted with a nod, touched by Amelia's consideration in asking. As they walked away, Emma's small hand trustingly in Amelia's, he felt an unexpected tightness in his chest. The retreat's first day went remarkably well. Marcus's breakfast service received enthusiastic compliments, and the boxed lunches he prepared for the executive's hiking excursion were a hit. By dinner, he had settled into a rhythm with the resort's kitchen staff, who seemed impressed by his organization and creativity. After the executives retired to the lodge's great room for evening drinks, Marcus found himself with a rare quiet moment. Emma had been invited to a supervised children's movie night, leaving him unexpectedly free. He wandered out to the resort's expansive deck, where the October night was cool but not uncomfortable. He was surprised to find Amelia alone at the deck's far end, gazing out at the moonlit lake, a shawl wrapped around her shoulders. Shouldn't you be leading some high-powered discussion right now? He asked, approaching cautiously. She turned, smiling when she saw him. I've learned to delegate. Tonight's session is being led by my VP of Operations. She gestured to the empty chair beside her. Join me. You've earned a break. Marcus hesitated only briefly before sitting. For a while, they simply enjoyed the tranquil view in comfortable silence. Emma seems to be having the time of her life, Amelia finally said. She told me all about her dinosaur collection during lunch. She's remarkably articulate for 5. She's always been verbally advanced, Marcus said, unable to keep the pride from his voice. Gets it from her mother, I think. Lily was his brilliant English professor. Amelia turned slightly toward him. May I ask what happened? Under normal circumstances, Marcus avoided discussing his failed marriage, but something about the quiet night and Amelia's genuine interest made him answer truthfully. We were young. I was 26, working in a restaurant and taking culinary classes at night. Lily was finishing her PhD. When she got pregnant, we thought we could make it work. He paused, watching the moonlight ripple across the lake. After Emma was born, Lily struggled. Postpartum depression, identity crisis, career anxiety, all of it. One morning, I woke up to a note saying she needed to find herself again. She visits Emma twice a year now. Amelia was quiet for a moment. That must have been incredibly difficult. It was, but honestly, I think it would have been worse for Emma if Lily had stayed and been unhappy. This way, Emma gets a mother who's present and engaged when she does see her, and he shrugged. And I discovered I'm pretty good at being both parents when I need to be. More than good, from what I've seen, Amelia said softly. The conversation shifted then, moving to easier topics. Marcus found himself telling her about his dreams for his catering business while she shared stories about the early days of building her company. What struck him most was how attentively she listened, asking questions that showed genuine interest rather than polite obligation. "What about you?" he finally asked. "You know my life story now. Divorced dad struggles to build business while raising adorable daughter. Pretty standard stuff." But what's the Amelia Blackwell backstory? Something flickered across her face, hesitation, perhaps, or surprise at being asked. "Not nearly as noble as yours. Privileged childhood, excellent education, inherited my father's company at 28 when he died unexpectedly. I've spent 7 years proving I deserved the position. And have you, proven it, I mean. The board thinks so. Our stock value has tripled." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Professionally, I've exceeded every metric of success. And personally." The question slipped out before he could consider its propriety. Amelia's gaze returned to the lake. "That's a much shorter story. Work consumes most of my life. My last relationship ended 2 years ago when he realized he'd never be my priority." Was he right? At the time, yes. She turned back to him. "What about you? Anyone special since Emma's mother?" Marcus laughed softly. "Between single parenting and building a business, no, there have been a few dates, but nothing serious." Most women aren't thrilled to discover that a 5-year-old schedule dictates my availability. "Their loss," Amelia said, so quietly he almost didn't hear it. They were interrupted by a resort staff member informing Amelia that her presence was requested for a question about tomorrow's agenda. As she stood to leave, she hesitated, then said, "If you're free tomorrow evening, there's a bonfire planned after dinner. Emma might enjoy the s'mores." "We'll be there," Marcus promised, wondering at the flutter of anticipation he felt as he watched her walk away. The second day of the retreat brought unexpected challenges. One of Marcus's temporary staff called in sick, leaving him short-handed for the elaborate lunch he had planned. Without complaint, he simply worked faster, determined not to let the quality suffer. He was so focused on plating the grilled salmon with heirloom tomato relish that he didn't notice Amelia enter the kitchen until she was beside him. "You're down a person," she observed. "What can I do to help?" Marcus looked up in surprise. "You want to help serve lunch?" "I can carry plates without dropping them," she said with a hint of amusement. "And I'd rather pitch in than watch you exhaust yourself." Before he could protest, she had donned an apron and was listening attentively to his instructions. To his astonishment, she proved remarkably capable, efficiently serving her executives, who seemed equally surprised to have their CEO delivering their meals. During a brief lull, Marcus found a moment to ask, "Don't they find this strange?" Amelia shrugged, adjusting the apron that looked oddly at home over her casual but clearly expensive attire. "Let them. I've spent years trying to seem perfect and untouchable. It's exhausting. And being a server is less exhausting," he teased. "Being myself is." She looked directly at him then. "Being around you and Emma. It reminds me there are simpler joys than quarterly projections and market expansions." Before he could respond, she was called away by an executive with a dietary question. But her words stayed with him throughout the afternoon, through the successful dinner service and into the evening, as he and Emma joined the group around the massive lakeside bonfire. Emma was in her element, fascinated by the flames and ecstatic about the prospect of making s'mores. Marcus watched as she carefully toasted a marshmallow under his supervision, her face serious with concentration. "Perfect technique," came Amelia's voice as she approached, carrying 3 skewers. "May I join the master marshmallow roasters?" "Yes," Emma exclaimed. "Daddy says I'm a natural." "I can see that," Amelia said, settling beside them on the large log that served as seating. Would you teach me your method? I always burn mine. For the next half hour, Emma solemnly instructed Amelia in the art of marshmallow toasting, while Marcus watched in quiet amazement. Amelia Blackwell, whose net worth he discreetly Googled and found to be in the high eight figures, was sitting in the dirt, sticky marshmallow on her fingers, laughing with uninhibited delight as Emma demonstrated how to properly sandwich the gooey confection between graham crackers. Later, as the executives drifted back toward the lodge and Emma's eyelids grew heavy, Amelia helped Marcus gather their supplies. "She's falling asleep," Amelia noted softly, nodding toward Emma, who was now leaning heavily against her father's side. "She never makes it past 8:30, Marcus confirmed. "I should get her to bed. Let me help you carry your things." Together, they walked back to the cabin Marcus and Emma had been assigned. At the door, Marcus shifted his sleeping daughter in his arms, feeling suddenly awkward. "Thank you for tonight," he said. "Emma had a wonderful time." "So did I," Amelia replied, her expression soft in the porch light. "More than I've had in, I can't remember how long." Something in her voice made Marcus pause. "Amelia," she shook her head slightly, "get her to bed. We can talk tomorrow." The next morning, as Marcus prepared breakfast, he found himself watching the door for Amelia. When she entered, their eyes met across the room, and her smile sent an unmistakable warmth through him. Throughout the day, as the retreat activities wound down and the executives prepared for departure, Marcus and Amelia exchanged glances and brief conversations that felt charged with unspoken possibility. Emma, perceptive as always, noticed, "Daddy, does Miss Amelia like us?" She asked as he packed their belongings. "I think she does, sweetheart." "Why?" "Because she looks at you the way Princess Tiana looks at Prince Naveen after they're not frogs anymore." Marcus laughed despite himself. "That's very observant of you. How would you feel about that, if Miss Amelia liked us?" Emma considered the question with adorable seriousness. "I like her. She doesn't talk to me like I'm a baby, and she makes you smile the good smile." "The good smile? The one that goes all the way to your eyes. You don't do that smile very much." Marcus felt a tightness in his chest. Out of the mouths of babes, indeed. As the retreat concluded and the executives began departing in their luxury vehicles, Marcus finished loading the rental van. He'd already received several business cards from Blackwell executives interested in his services for private events, a promising development for his business. He was securing the last container when Amelia approached. "Your final invoice, please add 20%, she said, handing him an envelope. "The food exceeded expectations, and you handled the staffing shortage seamlessly." "That's not necessary," he began, but she cut him off with a raised hand. "It absolutely is, but that's not why I came to find you." She glanced around to ensure they were relatively private. "I'd like to see you again, not as a client." Marcus felt his heart rate accelerate. "I'd like that too, but—" He hesitated. "But what?" "But I think you should know what you're getting into. I'm not just me, I'm a package deal with a 5-year-old. My schedule revolves around school pickups and bedtimes. My idea of a fancy night out is Olive Garden with crayons for Emma." He took a breath. "And I suspect my annual income is less than what you spend on shoes." Amelia's expression softened. "Do you think I don't know who you are by now? I've spent 3 days watching you create beautiful food while making sure your daughter feels secure and loved. I've seen your work ethic, your integrity, your patience." She stepped closer. "The package deal is precisely what interests me. Even with all the complications. Marcus, I run a technology company with thousands of employees and operations in 4 countries. I can handle complications." Her voice gentled. "The question is, can you handle mine? The travel, the public scrutiny, the fact that many people will assume you're with me for my money." He considered this. "I guess we'd both be taking a risk." "The best things usually require some risk," she smiled. "Besides, Emma already approved. She told me at breakfast that you do your good smile around me." Marcus laughed, shaking his head. "So much for father-daughter confidentiality. So what do you say? Dinner next weekend. I know a place with excellent crayons." I say yes. All 3 of us say yes. 6 months later, Marcus stood in his new kitchen, in the beautiful but modest house he had purchased with his thriving catering business's profits. The business had exploded after the retreat, with referrals flowing in from Blackwell executives and their connections. Emma sat at the counter, carefully drawing place cards for tonight's dinner, their weekly Sunday tradition where Amelia joined them for a family meal. In the 6 months since the retreat, they had built something neither had expected, a relationship based on genuine connection rather than superficial attraction. Marcus had been surprised to discover that, despite her wealth, Amelia was remarkably down to earth. She valued experiences over possessions and seemed genuinely refreshed by the simplicity of their life together. For her part, Amelia had confessed that Marcus's unwavering priority of Emma's well-being was what had first attracted her, the rarest form of integrity in her high-powered world. They had taken things slowly, mindful of Emma's feelings and the significant differences in their lives. But with each passing week, those differences seemed less important than the connection they shared. The doorbell rang and Emma jumped down from her stool. "She's here, can I open it?" "Go ahead, sweetheart." Marcus listened to Emma's excited greeting and Amelia's warm response. When they entered the kitchen, Amelia was carrying a small bouquet of wildflowers and wearing jeans and a simple sweater, a far cry from her corporate wardrobe. "Something smells amazing," she said, kissing him briefly before presenting Emma with one of the flowers for her hair. "Daddy made chicken with the crispy skin and mashed potatoes with the secret ingredient," Emma informed her importantly. "Garlic," Amelia guessed, winking at Marcus. "I'll never tell," he replied, smiling as he watched the two most important people in his life interact with such natural affection. Later, after Emma was in bed, Marcus and Amelia sat on the back porch swing, a bottle of wine between them. "I have something to tell you," she said, her voice uncharacteristically nervous. "I've made a decision about the company." Marcus turned to her, concerned by her tone. "What kind of decision?" "I'm stepping back from day-to-day operations, promoting Jack to CEO while I remain as chairwoman." "That's a big change, are you sure?" Amelia nodded, taking his hand. "These past 6 months have taught me something important. Success isn't measured by stock prices or market share. It's found in moments like tonight, sharing a meal, listening to Emma's kindergarten adventures, being present for the people who matter." Marcus squeezed her hand. "I never wanted you to change your life for us. That's the beauty of it. I'm not changing for you. I'm changing because you showed me what I really want." She looked into his eyes. "I want more evenings like this. I want to be there when Emma loses her first tooth or has her first school play. I want Sunday dinners and Saturday morning cartoons." "You know, none of that requires giving up your CEO position," he said gently. "I've never asked that of you. I know. That's why I'm sure it's the right decision for me." She leaned against him. "My father built that company and sacrificed everything for it, including his relationship with me. I don't want to repeat that pattern." Marcus put his arm around her, pulling her close. "Whatever you decide, I'm here, we're here." "I know," she smiled up at him. "That's why I can make this choice, because for the first time I have something more valuable than professional success." As they sat together in comfortable silence, watching the stars appear above Marcus's modest backyard, he marveled at life's unexpected turns. A year ago, he had been struggling to make ends meet, focused solely on providing for Emma and growing his small business. Now, his catering company was flourishing, Emma was thriving, and somehow he had found love with a woman whose wealth could have created an insurmountable barrier, but instead had become the least important aspect of who she was to him. "What are you thinking about?" Amelia asked, noticing his contemplative expression. "I'm thinking about how we met," he replied honestly. "How unlikely all of this was." She laughed softly. "You mean how a struggling caterer and a workaholic CEO found common ground, something like that." He turned to face her. "You know, Emma asked me the other day if you were going to be her stepmom someday." Amelia's breath caught. "What did you tell her?" "I told her I hoped so." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box, nothing flashy, just a simple solitaire he had saved for months to purchase. "If you're interested in the position." Tears filled Amelia's eyes as he opened the box. "Marcus, I know it's not what you're used to," he began, suddenly self-conscious. She placed her fingers against his lips. "It's perfect because it's from you." She took his face in her hands. "And yes, I am very interested in the position." As they sealed the moment with a kiss, Marcus knew that while he might never match Amelia's financial resources, he had given her something her money could never buy: a sense of belonging, of family, of being valued for herself rather than her wealth. And she had given him something equally precious: the confidence to believe that sometimes love really could conquer all differences. Emma's delighted shriek the next morning when they told her the news confirmed what they already knew, that the family they were building together was the greatest success either of them would ever achieve.